I still love that music. It's just so evocative for me. Welcome everybody to the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you to the world of online communications in a show which was the brainchild of the late, great, and sadly missed internet evangelist John Popham. So, in usual Dr. Tech Show fashion, we welcome our special guest today, Breege McDaid from Freya and Irish Community Care. And we ask people our guests how the weather is where they are. Breege, how are you, and how's the weather where you are?
Well, I'm great, Pauline, and I'm up in Liverpool, and the weather is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful sunny day. I'm stuck in an office, but the sun is peeking through the window, so it's lovely.
Very tempting. And Sweyn, how are you? Where are you? And how's the weather?
I'm fine. I'm in Orkney as usual, in Kirkwall, and the weather is very warm but quite overcast.
Okay. Well, here in Birmingham, it had very blue skies earlier. It's still fairly blue, but it's lost a bit of its brightness. But I was in the garden earlier, and it was very nice. And so I'm hoping for the rest of the day to remain sunny, so I can get out in the garden again. And so before we start talking to Breege, we'll cover a few of our usual topics. Sweyn's been busy finding out what's happening around this time. And on September the 6th, which is today, is National Read a Book Day 2021. And he's listed a few of the reasons you should join in on this holiday and read a book. So I'll read some of these out. Read a book today because it's the best excuse for peace and quiet. You love sitting in your favorite chair. That stack of borrowed books needs a dent. I've got several stacks around me here. All your friends are busy. You need a new favorite quotation. Books are on your schedule. You can pick them up, put them down at your convenience. Walking to the library, one of our favorite topics, is a great excuse, good exercise. You saw the movie, but you heard the book is way better. You've always wanted to read Anna Karenina. You've always wanted to reread Anna Karenina. There's a swathe of history you're sick of having to admit you know nothing about. Some sentences are better than kissing. See Nabokov. Your perspective can be changed by a single passage. See Vonnegut. Your life can be changed by a book. See The Year of Magical Thinking. You're going through something and you just need to get lost in a beautiful made-up world. You haven't gotten to use your imagination in a really long time. Today's world is so loud, hyper-connected and busy, and the world inside your head is yours and yours alone. Some great reasons there. I don't need any excuses. I just love reading. But if people need reasons, then there they are.
I like
Sweyn,
that list. I thought that was a very clever
it's
list.
wonderful. It's very, very good. Sweyn, what are you reading at the moment?
What am I reading at the moment? I'm still reading The End of Empire by Priya Gopal, and I have to say I haven't picked it up very often in the last couple of weeks, so I have to get on with that.
Mm-hmm. I'm reading a book called The Roles We Play by Saba Khan. It's on my sofa over there. It's a graphic novel, actually. I don't often read them, but I heard her speak at an event at Civic Square on Saturday, and it's about the life of a Pakistani Murpuri family in England. That's how I describe it. Maybe she wouldn't. And the parallels between migrant communities are very, very close. And also she's a younger sister and I'm an older sister, so we connected on that basis as well. Breege, what about yourself? Are you reading anything at the moment?
Well, I have just finished a book called The Girl with the Louding Voice. It's about a young girl in Nigeria, growing up in Nigeria, and how the potential of education can open up a whole world. So just put it down yesterday. So my job now is to pick up another one today before I get out of the way of reading. So that's my plan.
Very good. That sounds like a good plan. And another thing that Sweyn picked up is that starting this week, it's Know Your Numbers Week, which is from Blood Pressure UK 2021. And this year we were asking, do you know your risks of high blood pressure numbers? And some of us may know this already, but high blood pressure usually has no symptoms, which is why it's often referred to as a silent killer. And the only way to know you have it is to have it checked. Therefore, they want to encourage all family members to check their blood pressure. So if detected, it can be easily treated, thereby reducing your risk of stroke or heart disease. And this is the UK's biggest and most far-reaching blood pressure testing event and awareness week, and encourages adults across the UK to know their blood pressure numbers and take necessary action to reach and maintain a healthy blood pressure. Home blood pressure monitoring is an effective and inexpensive way to keep blood pressure under control, and the evidence behind it continues to get stronger and gives you a way to take control of your health, feel confident, and take the pressure off the NHS at the same time. So, because then no need to visit your GP, practice nurse, or pharmacist in person. It puts you in the driver's seat and really can save lives. So they are going to encourage the nation to use a simple and reliable blood pressure monitor to measure their blood pressure at home and take the necessary steps if their reading is considered high, and raise awareness about the risks of high blood pressure. Do we all know what our numbers are in blood pressure? I mean, I don't know what they mean, but I know my blood pressure tends to be low rather than high, and my dad was the same, so I know this.
My shame, Pauline, I don't know my blood pressure, and I really should. And I just emphasize to everybody, particularly from community or Irish communities and Irish traveller communities where heart disease is massive, we all should be taking responsibility to get to know our numbers. I'm failing, mea culpa, I need to do the job. I'll be out there to do that, hopefully soon. So important. There's so many simple things we can all do to look after our health and just take that precautionary measure. So great advocate of that, definitely.
Yeah. And
My blood
being
pressure
online
can be.
offers
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, being online offers us opportunities now that we didn't have before to look after our health a bit better, maybe. Sorry, Sweyn, you were saying.
No, I was interrupting. I shouldn't do that. My blood pressure is a little bit on the high side, but with plenty of exercise and a reasonably healthy diet, it's under control. And I think everything you say about Ireland and Irish people, Breege, probably applies to us in Scotland as well. Sure, it does.
Yeah, well, let's encourage each other and our listeners to know your numbers week, and maybe next week we can check, and we'll set ourselves a challenge, Sweyn, of finding out what our blood pressure is, and then we'll have our many listeners keeping an eye on us to make sure that we're.
Maybe that should be another reverse standard. What's the weather like question? Maybe not.
How's your blood pressure?
Maybe not.
Well, it might be a good question for our kind of demographic. Yeah, let's
yes,
think about that. Okay, moving on. On the 12th of September in 1959, Luna 2 was launched by the USSR, and it was the first spacecraft to impact on the moon. So does that mean it didn't land, it just impacted somehow? Something was left, or anyway?
Yes,
I just
they did it all in stages, didn't they? So that they did the takeoff, and then they aborted it, and then they did getting out of orbit, and then they aborted, and then so presumably there was one which they landed on the, more or less crash landed on the moon, and didn't worry about having to leave again, presumably with nobody on board.
Well, I think the language is quite concise, impact on the moon. We'll give them credit for that. Okay, and we didn't.
It's quite a long way, so you need to make sure you really do find the moon and impact on the right planet.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Not
heavenly body. You don't want
on the wrong thing. Yeah,
suddenly arrive at Mars or something.
Yeah, well, there's no pressure, no atmosphere apparently, no gases. I was on a quiz on Saturday night, and one of the questions was, what's the atmosphere made up of on Mars or something like that. Anyway,
question.
So, yes, absolutely. Yes, there is none. So we came third, though. So
well done.
Big up us. Yeah. Right. So moving on, we've got we usually have some events as well that we pick up happening, and I didn't pick up any particular things this week, but I did pick up that a friend of the UK, I would say, Dr. Jackie Taylor, who I've met through UK GovCamp. Sweyn, you probably know her as well.
I know who you mean. I don't know her well, but I know who you mean, yes.
Who runs Flying Binary. She is returning to the Cabinet Office, bringing her United Nations work home, stepping down from her G20 duties to take a 2-year appointment to the Open Standards Board. And we want to celebrate this because people like Jackie do amazing work, and then they kind of bring it back to the UK to make it more effective for all of us. And she's really ambitious and driven, and I think we'll do a great job. And she's very well connected, so I'm very happy. We're very happy to give her a shout out. Jackie's looking to build the next level of transformation across government for the benefit of us all, and what she describes as an important strand of what's called the empathy economy. Now, that wasn't a phrase I'd come across before, Sweyn, but I think it's one we're going to be hearing more about. I think we know people in that who would say they are part of that economy, and maybe it's something we're going to be hearing more about, I think, in the future. Jackie's important work will underpin the next steps for technology in the UK's future digital economy, and it's an opportunity to look at the wider cybersecurity needs beyond national security. Jackie calls it the next steps of a UK growth agenda. She was reflecting on LinkedIn that in 2011, the UK government set up the changes which would bring digital government to the UK. Jackie left the Cabinet Office in 2015 with that work well established to take this work across the world. And today that change has been seeded for 180 nations via her United Nations work. So the UK government, she says, is showing the leadership needed to create the future digital economies and underpinning that work with open standards. So that sounds like a really worthwhile thing to be celebrating. And we look forward to hearing more about that. And I mean, I don't know whether Jackie would consider coming on the show, but I certainly think we'll follow her progress with interest, because it'll be of interest to lots of our network, people in our network, and hopefully have a big effect on a positive effect on all of us. Okay, so with that, we move on to our very special guest, Breege McDaid. Breege, thank you very much for joining us today. Breege is the director of Irish Community Care, which is a small charity based in Liverpool and engages Irish communities across the northwest of England. And their job is to make sure people stay safe, well and connected, helping in whatever way they can and making a real and lasting difference to people's lives. Irish Community Care is delighted to be a partner of Freya, where 3 Irish charities, Irish Community Care Manchester and Leeds Irish Health and Homes, are working closely together, sharing resources, skills and knowledge to build sustainable services to support vulnerable people in the communities. So this was a collaborative partnership between the 3 organisations, and they recently launched the free Freya Digital Solutions Research Report, which we mentioned in one of our shows in early August. And the research outlines the difficulties facing older Irish immigrants with digital access. Breege herself is from County Donegal in Northwest Ireland, my favourite county in Ireland. And she has lived and worked in Merseyside for nearly 40 years, the majority of which she's had the privilege of being involved in Irish community care, but Donegal will always be home. She was humbled to have received the Irish Presidential Distinguished Service Award in 2018. She has 3 grown-up children and is enjoying her 3 grandchildren. So as I say, we mentioned this story in early August, and I contacted Freya. I think Breege was probably on holiday then, and we spoke to one of her colleagues, and they volunteered Breege to come on the show. So we're delighted to have you, Breege. We're delighted to have you, and it sounds like a really brilliant project. And you and I have both worked in the Irish community in Britain for so many years, and we know the huge need that's out there. So this sounds like one very beneficial and one that could be scaled up and imitated in other parts of the country where there are Irish community people. So welcome to the show, and can you please tell us a bit more about yourself and your we like to know where our guests are in terms of digital. What was your early exposure to being online and being digital?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, it's great to be on the show. Absolutely delighted to be invited, even though volunteered by colleagues in my absence. I will forgive them. That is okay. I will get my own back soon, I hope. My first experience of digital, well, I would call myself a bit of a technophobe, totally and absolutely. I am a self-taught person on the computer, typing with one finger and one hand and learning, quite good on the computer now, but digital stuff, I still am a bit of technophobe. I can use Zoom, great, and I can use Teams, which is fabulous. Don't do any of the social media stuff as a person, and that's okay, that's a personal choice. But as an organization, we're working to get better digitally connected out in all the social media platforms. I think the last 15 months has shown us how important that digital connection is, really so important. And the whole pandemic, the whole world went digital and left a whole sort of a lot of people just totally excluded from that. So what the pandemic has taught is that importance of digital to keep people connected, so important. So I am up in my game around technology, and as a community organization, I think very often the voluntary community sector are at the, we're very much hands-on. We speak to people regularly, we connect with people, and when we weren't able to do that face-to-face connection, we had to find other solutions. And what we found was the digital solution just didn't work for many of our community members for many reasons. People didn't have the tech. Some people had the tech, but didn't have the Wi-Fi or couldn't afford the Wi-Fi. And those even who had the tech didn't really have the level of skill that was needed to connect digitally. And a phone is a computer nowadays. And some people just didn't really know the potential of that phone. So that was a big eye-opener for us as a community organisation here in Liverpool. And working with partners in Manchester and Leeds, it was like, hang on a wee minute, this is massive. And that's why we started, you know what, we'll do a bit of research. We'll talk to people we're already connected with and see what the story is for them. And you know what, it was a great piece of work. It really was conducted during the pandemic. It was led by one staff member and a group of volunteers who interviewed 100 people. Great stuff. Report is fabulous. And just, I think for us, it gives us the next steps from what our communities have said, what's important to them, and where we need to go with the whole digital stuff. But it is, I can't emphasize enough how important it is. Even as we're going back to sort of, lockdowns are over for now. Who knows what the future will bring? But, even as we come out of lockdowns, we've got a lot of people who are still not that confident about going out, fearing actually, their health is vulnerable. You don't particularly want to be in crowds of people. We, before COVID, we had our most active groups were regular groups of older people meeting together for lunch, for conversations, for a bit of crack. A lot of people aren't that confident in joining those, but because organisations have taken the time to connect people on Zoom, we can still connect and people can still have that bit of banter, a bit of crack and conversation. So important for health and well-being, I have to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great to hear that kind of outlook beyond lockdowns and digital beyond the point when we're allowed to go out, because it's been the case for forever that there are some people who can't easily get to a room to take part in things, whether they've got health challenges or caring responsibilities or whatever it is. It is another route to find that people can find the stuff that they need to find. And it's great to hear organizations looking on it like that as we move forward into what we must not call the new normal.
Yes,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah.
100%.
So of the three things that people kind of needed or wanted, devices, connectivity and skills, Breege, what would you say was the most lacking in, the people found the most difficult thing to address?
Well, I think for us, we interviewed 100 older people in the north of England, many of whom had the technology, which was quite surprising. And that was great because we were starting from where we were on the ladder already because the tech was there. I think some people had the Wi-Fi connection, some people didn't, but I think the majority had, but people hadn't put the two together. And mainly the reason because of that was they didn't have the skills and they didn't actually have the confidence to say, well, you know what, I'm going to give it a go, because people thought I might break that phone, break that tablet, break that iPad. And I think as well, what we find is the people who had family were really supportive and tried to help, but actually didn't really have time. And people felt, when they didn't want to put upon family to give them more time to do the digital stuff. And I think, so I think it was a combination of things, really. You've got the tech, you've got the Wi-Fi, but I don't know what to do. But once you gave people that bit of confidence to say, do you know what, one wee step, and this is what you can do, and opening up the whole digital world with hand holding and being there at the end of the phone as your Zoom was connecting and think, the computer isn't going to explode, it's going to be fine. All that kind of stuff was so, so important. And I know when we launched the research report in, God, was it May now? Was that far? Yeah. There were some really good testimonials at the launch where, a lot of our older people were saying, this has opened up a whole new world. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of X, Y, and Z. So I just think there's a huge positive journey ahead around that.
It's great to hear, because it kind of echoes what we've heard in other parts of the country. One of the stories we talked about last week was an organisation called Clear Community Web in London, and they've done similar hand holding and digital skills and getting people's devices and stuff and doing training. And it's really important to hear the stories of what people have been through, but to know there are organizations out there as well who are able to help. So did you get help from IT companies or other voluntary organizations, or what?
We did. Well, it was a mixture of lots of things, Pauline and Sven. To be honest, when COVID hit, it was like, oh my goodness, we need to continue to deliver our services, but we also need to do more, because we knew that there'd be lots of people who wouldn't be connected in so many different ways. So we were fortunate. We got some funding to set up a CARA program. CARA is the Irish word for friend here in Liverpool. And I know Leeds and Manchester have done similar programs where we sort of looked at the key issues that were affecting people during COVID and took steps to address those. So we got some money, firstly from the Irish government and then from the lottery, the National Lottery Community Fund. So we were able to task staff to get, with more hours, more capacity in the team, to do some of that interface over the phone and help people get online. Really, positive stuff. So I think that investment in giving us a bit more time to do that work, because we're small organizations and people are really busy doing the other parts of their work around advice and advocacy and all of that stuff. So to expect staff to do the digital stuff, I think would have been a step too far. So we were thankful for the funding from the Irish government and from the lottery. And part of that funding was to invest in some technology. So we were in a good position to, buy some equipment and lend that equipment, which was fantastic. And then for those people who had the equipment anyway, it was more or less, what have you got? Are you comfortable with it? How do you use it? Let's talk through, let's support you. So I think it was a good response from everybody and a willingness to be flexible. But also, for me, I think the appetite for learning was great. People wanted to be tech savvy. People wanted to, once they'd sort of got over the wee hurdle, it was like, give me more. What else can I do? And that was great. That was really inspiring.
I just wanted to ask, you're involved with the Irish community in the Northwest. What I mean, Pauline probably knows this already, but what are the specific issues and challenges that face the Irish community in the parts of that are in the parts of the UK? Are there specific things that are needed? And if so, what are they?
Well, I think Irish communities' experiences, and we work with both our Irish community and our Irish traveller and Gypsy traveller communities. So, and I would say there are lots of similarities across communities, but I think one of the biggest challenges for our communities, I mean, there's all the socioeconomic stuff and health inequalities that I could bore you for 3 hours with, but I won't. But Pauline can tell you another time. And there are serious inequalities around health, around access to services, around access to opportunities and stuff. But and I think for our communities, that isn't always recognised, and that's really an important point to make, because I think whoever's listening out there, and if you haven't considered the particular and additional experiences of Irish and Irish traveller people, then you need to. That's a big message going out there. In terms of the digital stuff, I think there's a lot of poverty in our communities whereby people are making big decisions. Will I use the lights or will I feed my family? So thinking about actually, having a phone or getting the Wi-Fi, that is a big no-no. So poverty is a big issue. And we did some really good work in COVID because obviously families, children were home from school, the electric ESBs, the former Irish Electric Supply Board, the electricity bills would be huge because the lights would be on, the washing machine would be on, everything would be on. Children were wearing clothes, they weren't wearing the uniform. So families were really struggling with money to get food, all that kind of stuff. But I'll go back to, I digress a bit because our focus is on our research. But it's just those real challenges that people face, and even people take a mobile phone for granted, but not everybody has one. People take tablets for granted. Not everybody has one. And even if they do have a loan of one, it's paying for the Wi-Fi and paying for all of that stuff. That was a major challenge. Literacy is also a big issue in our communities. So if you can't read, or your reading is really poor, and you don't particularly want to say to somebody, well, do you know what? I've managed in my life so far, and I don't want to tell that person that I don't read, or I don't read very well. There's a pride thing here, and that's really important. Yeah. So, but I think with all of the opportunities around voice messages and all that kind of stuff, we can look at how we can address the barriers of literacy. And again, the skills stuff, like many communities, people really don't have the digital skills. And I think the other thing is that there's an I think people think that everybody has access to all of this, and people don't. And every single service throughout COVID, if you look at your GP appointment, you couldn't even ring up You had to go online and do an online consult.
Yeah.
The DWP, applying for universal credit, all of that went online. So if you've got no technology, and even if you have the technology, if you've got no literacy, how do you manage it? And you manage it through support, and that support can be family, friends, or community organisations. And I'd like to make the point that community organisations play a vital role in have done through the pandemic and will continue to do so.
Absolutely.
So did that answer your question, Sven?
Absolutely, no, it's a very interesting answer.
It's
very interesting
wide-ranging.
answer. Yeah.
The other big thing that affects our community, as Breege region I know very well, is mental health. You know, Irish people sadly experience some Irish people in this country sadly experience poor mental health, and services are not always set up to be culturally competent to support us. And obviously with the addition of COVID, then I think the effect on people's mental health, Irish community people and other people, you know, was huge. Did you come across any particular aspects of that, Breege?
We did, in terms of, I mean, at our community service, we have got sort of a warm, welcoming environment where prior to COVID, people would come in and we'd have activities going on either here in our base in Dale Street or out and about in the community. And for people to be able to connect on a regular basis kept people well. But throughout COVID, it has all been telephone, emergency doorstop as and when required. So all of that, people felt incredibly vulnerable and their mental health did deteriorate. And that's going to be, I think, one of the legacies from COVID, whereby, you know, people's confidence, esteem, whole health and well-being is, you know, there's a whole piece of work to rebuild that beyond COVID. Absolutely. And I think particularly, you know, in our communities, you know, some people are long settled here and have extended families and all that support. Lots of our people don't. They're on their own, you know, come here maybe on their own, have, you know, outlived their partner and are on their own and not that well connected. So certainly, absolutely right, Pauline, mental health has been massive throughout COVID.
Yeah. And then, of course, you also speak about Irish travellers. I mean, they would, again, face particular discrimination and poverty. And did you find anything particular around them and digital, or, you know, their COVID experience?
I think digital is, you know, I think some of the travelling community are digitally connected, fantastic, but many aren't. And many, particularly of the older generation, just aren't at all. You know, and huge challenges in working with the community to embrace technology. I think the other thing for families who are on, you know, maybe even local authority owned and managed sites, Wi-Fi connection is probably in the main a big no-no. For families who are travelling around, I mean, COVID, you know, when all the leisure centres shut and, you know, things that we take for granted, like having a shower, well, the families would use the leisure centre for all of those, you know, issues that, you know, need to happen on a regular basis. That wasn't open at all. So really big challenges and a lot of, I mean, I think local authorities and their resilience forums, you know, did work hard to make sure that people weren't moved on, to make sure that they could stay in a particular area in light of COVID, but that wasn't always the case. And we're talking about, you know, families with children and children who, you know, educated at home, you know, people living in a trailer with no space and maybe 5 children. How do you do the teaching with your children? And how do you also do the teaching if you yourself haven't had much experience of education? Really, really massive challenges. But aside from, I mean, there's been some fantastic work that has been ongoing. I know Traveller Movement, which is a national organisation, and they did some fantastic work with engaging tutors from one of the colleges or universities in London and setting up some home tutoring programs. Amazing work, phenomenal work. So whilst there was lots of struggles, there were so many good things that did happen.
Good. Maybe you could tell us a few more, you know, on the positive side of things. And we're particularly interested as well to hear about the volunteering, you know, what kind of volunteers got involved and what their skill level was.
Well, most of our volunteers through our CARA programme, a lot of it was practical support in terms of regular befriending calls and shopping buddies for people who were shielding or just couldn't go out to the shops. So people would get their messages delivered, sorted, done, all of that practical support. That was something else that people didn't have to worry about. And then volunteers talking through community members around the tech stuff. you've got a phone. What do you do on your phone? What would you like to do on your phone? Let's see how. But very difficult and very challenging to do at a distance. But you know what? People did it, and we managed it, and it was great. We had, and some of our volunteers were facilitating. You know, when we've got people on Zoom, we had some good news cafes, arts and crafts stuff, connecting up, great stuff all together. That really people, the willingness to help was phenomenal. People wanted so much to get involved, and for me, that was really inspirational stuff. Really inspirational stuff. And you know, I think we're not out of the what do we call? We're not out of the woods yet, and I think the volunteering role is going to be key in championing the digital stuff going forward as well, and making that happen for people. Really.
So what kind of things would you like to see happen, Breege? Because I think now is a good time for us to be thinking about what needs to happen next in the next 6 months, year, 5 years, because people are going to be making plans, and people with access to resources are going to be making plans about what they need to see. And we have had access to some of what people are thinking about, Sweyn and I, through other networks that we're part of. So what are the things, if you had a wish list, what would be the kind of top 3 or 5 things you'd want to see happening?
Yeah. Well, I think what came out clearly in the Freya report, people need to make a commitment to get people digitally connected, and that's about small community organizations, bigger organizations, the government, and you know, there needs to be investment in that work. It is so important. And you know what, it wouldn't be massive investment, it's just to give everybody the same opportunity. As services and everything is going to be more online, we need to make sure that everybody can be connected and there's no inequality in that access. So that's a big priority for us, and we're doing it at grassroots level. We've got funding for a piece of digital access work. It's going to be small, but it will prove the point again, and we hope to grow and develop that. We're hoping to connect up with more people who can offer volunteer and support, and we're also planning to connect with services that are online to make sure that they have considered people who can't be online for whatever reason. So I think it's important that everybody takes that responsibility and is planning to make sure that everybody is more digitally aware and can be more, digitally included.
Yeah. So are there particular organizations you're aware of that you found helpful, you know, that do the kind of digital inclusion locally or nationally?
Well, to be fair, I know in Leeds, and I'm talking on behalf of Ant and his team at Leeds Irish Health and Homes, they're well connected with 100% digital in Leeds. And no, following the Freya research report, they offered 100% support to all of the community organisations. So we will be reaching out to digital, 100% digital in Leeds to do that. Locally, I have to say, I think everybody's sort of been surviving and managing the COVID what they can do, but I think there needs to be a bigger conversation, certainly here across Liverpool City region, in having that conversation. I know one of our programs of work is a basic skills and employability program. Again, a small program, but a big thing around that is digital inclusion. People need access to work. People need access to benefits. All the learning, a lot of it is online. People need to be able to do that. So I think it's taken the relevant steps we need, and for us it's resources and conversations with connected people that can support us with that.
Are you aware, Breege, there's a standard for essential digital skills? Well,
the answer to that, Pauline, is no. So I need to find out more, and I need to have bigger conversations. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd be very happy to do that. As you know, I was always keen when I was involved in Irish in Britain, the national umbrella organisation for Irish organisations in Britain, to be more digital. I did one famous session on LinkedIn for the trustees a couple of years ago. I think I had to make them come to a lunchtime event and do it. You know, it was kind of a 3-line whip, but they did do it, and hopefully it was benefit to them. Would you say your trustees, Breege, where are they on their digital journey?
Well, I think a bit like our team and our volunteers. People are on a different stage in that journey. Some people are really well digitally aware and savvy. other people not so much, and maybe some fear and hesitancy around that. But if there's any, I would be really happy, Pauline, to have a further conversation around that and do some work together. That would be, and of Freya Park. I mean, when I'm speaking here today, I'm speaking from Irish Community Care, but more importantly, from Freya Partners, seeing as they volunteered me in my absence. So
Yeah.
I think all Freya Partners, and partners across Irish and Britain, I'm sure they'd be really interested in that conversation. Definitely.
Well, it might be, I mean, I don't know if you've had the chance to listen back to any of our previous programs, but we do cover a whole range of initiatives that are happening up and down the country and abroad as well, because we know we can learn from other countries. And actually, Ireland itself is doing some really interesting work around digital inclusion. They've a big report was published recently, and we referred to it in the last few shows. So I think between us, we should be able to come up with something that would be very useful. Yeah.
I must say that I work for a local authority in my day job, and I hadn't really been fully aware of all the work that had been done in various sectors on this kind of codification and cataloguing of the various digital skills that people need. And it just seems to me a lovely way of kind of bringing some kind of structure to what is otherwise an enormous, scary subject.
It's interesting. It's interesting to look at the standard, because yeah, go on, Sweyn.
No.
It's interesting to look at the standard because it does break down, what you need to know into kind of very small steps, like this is a mouse and this is a keyboard and a keypad and all the kind of stuff, and the kind of things that old hands like myself and Sweyn kind of take very much for granted. But we also realize it's not normal for most people. And we're in the lucky minority really at the moment, and we want to increase that minority to make it a majority. A lot more people, as we've said, Breege, in the course of the show, are online now more than were at the beginning of the pandemic, but there are still huge groups of people who are excluded for whatever reason, and we'd hope to find ways of addressing that, including by things we cover on the show.
For me, the various frameworks that there are, what it does is there's a risk without them that people who are attempting to help kind of start at the wrong level and miss out things that are so long ago in our own journeys into the digital world that we kind of forget they're a thing. Even it's like an expert trying to teach somebody who knows nothing about their subject is quite often at a disadvantage because they can't step themselves backwards. And I think the great thing that the frameworks do is that it allows everybody to share a common, well, literally a page, whether it's a web page or a piece of paper, to actually be on the same page as to what we're all trying to achieve. I just think they're really, the people who put work into those things are it's really well worthwhile.
There's lots of good digital maturity tools out there, Breege, that people can start answering questions to find out where they are. Like we covered one in a recent program from Denmark. It was a kind of a 70 question wheel sort of thing, where you'd say where you were on the journey, and it's just useful to see a visual representation and to know where you might need a bit of extra help. We all need a bit of extra help. People say to us all the time, oh, you're digital, you know all about this stuff. Well, we do know certain things, but we don't know everything. And the most freeing thing is to be able to say, I don't know, but I can find out. Which brings us to public libraries, Breege. We're a great advocate of digital inclusion through public libraries. We know that they've been doing work to encourage people and support people getting online, since the internet was created in the 90s. Have you found libraries useful in the Freya partnership?
We haven't really explored that, Pauline, to be honest, and I think a lot of that has been the because the whole Freya and the research has been done in a pandemic. So really that access, we haven't really considered that access as yet. But we will, we know prior to, a lot of our community members would use the public libraries in terms of, who were digital savvy in terms of developing CVs and stuff like that. They would use the libraries, but that's certainly something to revisit, definitely is. And I think going back to the framework, I think that is brilliant. Brilliant for, the whole planning, the whole assessment, and also the reflection, people on their digital journey. Wow, this is amazing. This is how far I've come in a short period of time. Where are we going next? Great stuff, really. So this will definitely be a job for our digital access person, definitely, to suss out more.
Brilliant. Oh, you've got a digital access person. You have a funded post.
We're coming up. We recently got
Okay.
funding, so we are hoping that we will have somebody in post. We'll be able to do the recruitment over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So that will be a dedicated resource who will look at all of this, and that has been really helpful. And I'll be referring them back to the Dr. Tech shows. Definitely, you need to go back, revisit all of them. Brilliant. And it's been brilliant. I'll certainly be saying to people, you need to tune in on a Monday. You need to listen in. It's been really, really enlightening, really.
That's good. We're very pleased. We've done over 60 shows now since May last year, when John Popham, our dearly departed founder, started and just invited us to get involved, and we were happy to kind of jump on. But I think we have over the weeks and months, looked. You know me, Breege. I love being on the internet. I love doing social media, and we've picked up lots of interesting stories and tools and people who are doing great things with digital, and they're all there on YouTube for people to refer back to. I mean, some of the early programs are a bit what would you call it? What was the word?
They're a bit informal and less than technically completely. Oops, he says moving his table. There's a good example. Well, yes, but it's all good humored, and the thing that struck me is really how themes have come out again and again and again from people all working in various, either with various geographical areas or various communities of interest or whatever. The same sorts of themes come out over and over again, and and yet there's differences and things that the various sectors can definitely learn from each other as they move forward. And I think that one of the themes that is starting to come now is as we move post pandemic, how are we going to keep the good parts of all the hard won digital stuff, and yet still be able to encourage people to meet face to face. So that's I think for me the interesting part now.
Yeah, it's great as well, Breege, to see funders willing to fund digital projects. This wasn't common. I know myself from my funder's hat on, or with my access to charity networks. It has been difficult in the past to find funders understanding the need to support digital projects, but obviously COVID has been in that way a blessing, so that they can clearly see there's no argument now. We need technology, we need access, we need skills, we need connectivity, we need devices. So it's much easier, I think, to make the argument with funders now, even with the change in our situation in regard to the pandemic. We're still going to need devices, connectivity, and skills more than ever, actually. So the argument's been made.
The pandemic was a specific requirement, but there are similar, more general requirements in terms of accessibility, equity of opportunity, and also climate, carbon type things. Because if we'd all travelled 65 times to one place to present the Dr. Tech show, all from one room, then we'd have spent an absolute fortune. Well, we wouldn't have done it because it would have been ridiculous. But there's an awful lot of stuff that, even if you do, we will all want to meet together to have conferences and to do things which we definitely want to do together. But we should be able to do some of the preparation and some of the follow-up stuff without so much travel as used to happen, surely. Yeah. And all that will feed into sort of the carbon and climate and savings that we need to make. But the main thing for me is still that, and also taking the accessibility opportunities of digital on as we move on.
I think that's really important, and I think the time element as well. Time and for travel is, sometimes it's good. It's time to reflect. You can, do some work as you go, but time, just even connecting more with people, because you've got that bit more time. I think we will all be reflecting, and when somebody says we'll have a meeting in Birmingham, we think, well, do you know what? Get on your computer and we'll do a Zoom and pretend we're together. Don't get me wrong, face to face is so important, and it's that blend, isn't it? It's that blend of face to face with all of the other opportunities that we've learned that technology can offer us. You know, that's a real positive legacy of COVID, isn't it? You know,
Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
It's good. There's something, because most of it's been really horrible.
Yeah, definitely. So, Breege, we have a few stories that we'd like to just refer to, because we picked things up along the week, and listeners do like to hear what else we've picked up. But if people want to be in touch with you about the project or about Irish Community Care, where's the best place to find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can go to our website, you can go to our Facebook page, and I'm the technophobe who hasn't got all those details to hand, but should have. Our website is www.irishcc.net. We have our landline 0151 237 3987, or you can email us at admin@irishcc.net. And I think the Facebook is at technophobe.
Here we
Pauline
are. We've got the website.
That's our lovely website.
Yeah.
Got the website on screen now, so
Very
and
nice.
it is irishcc.net, as you said,
irishcc.net.
and I'm sure you'll be able to find the Facebook page from there.
Yeah, it's on
I'm
there
sure.
as well. So,
Yeah. Some nice pictures there, Breege.
Yeah,
The
great
April Bridge
pictures.
in the
I'll just tell you a little
background.
story about because this is our new website and our new logo, which is a salmon, and it always creates great stories. What the hell's a fish doing as your new logo? This is the salmon of knowledge.
Knowledge,
and if
lovely.
which is a story in Irish mythology, and the journey of the salmon and the salmon of knowledge, the story, and I won't go into it, but it's a fabulous story. So Google it and have a read, and it reflects our work and our people so well. So we're really pleased with it. So that's why the salmon is there.
That's
Excellent.
very interesting. That's an excellent logo.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's a lovely design. Well done.
We're
Well
pleased
done.
with it. Thank you.
Stop sharing that for now. So
Okie doke, and we'll have a look at some of the stories that we've picked up.
Oh,
The first
great.
one. Sorry, are we all right about that? Oh, sorry,
yes,
are we
yes.
gonna be
No,
able
I'm
to- yeah,
just.
okay.
I've only got one screen today, which is
Yeah.
challenging me slightly, and I've also got a sugary table, as you can see. So I'm trying to not be too pathetic about it.
Okay, well, the first one, hopefully,
Which story would you like, Polly?
is Vodafone launching a free data scheme for registered UK charities. And this was a story we picked up from civil society website, civilsociety.co.uk. So they've launched a Charities Connected, which is an initiative allowing UK charities to apply for free data. And the aim is to help individuals and families supported by charities, as well as enable organizations to improve their own digital capacity. Their research has found that almost half of charities, 45%, have had to give their users devices, data, or support to enable them to get online, and 20% said they had to cancel services because they didn't have the skills or technology needed to deliver them. And this is in the 2021 Charity Digital Skills Report, which we have reported on previously in the show. So registered charities can apply for SIM cards with 20 gig of data, plus free calls and texts every month for 6 months. A 20 gig, we can have a discussion about whether that's enough, Sweyn, but anyway, it's more than nothing. Multiple SIMs can be requested, and repeat applications can be made if the organisation has a range of digital exclusion projects underway, and the scheme forms part of Vodafone's commitment to tackle digital exclusion. The SIMs will work in any SIM-enabled device, a phone, a tablet, a laptop, or a MiFi dongle. And all applications, they say, will be reviewed and a decision to support made within 30 days. And then SIMs will be issued within 30 days of a positive decision and are ready for distribution from the 1st of September. And if charities require more than 100 SIMs, the process could take a little longer, but Vodafone will work with them with you to support your needs. And the SIMs are available until the 1st of November 2022 or until the supplies run out. So, Breege, that might be one that you could
well, I'll just add to
advantage
that,
of.
Pauline, because I saw that last week and we applied. And what I'd say to people is the application is really straightforward. It's not war and peace. There's a couple of questions, and it was quite simple to apply to. So we'll keep you posted if we have an outcome from that.
Can I just clarify something? Are the SIMs that are on offer there, Pauline or Breege, are they aimed at being under the control of the organisation in order to get connected themselves, or are they for distribution to service users?
Well, my reading of it, but correct me, I could be stand corrected here, and certainly our focus was to enable our communities to become connected.
Yeah.
So we would be distributing those who didn't have. If we're successful, we'll be giving them to community members.
I think 20, assuming it's 20 gigabytes a month.
I think so. That's how I read it. Yeah.
I think that's a fairly reasonable chunk of data. be interesting to see, Breege, how you get on with that, and whether it turns out in real life to be enough. But it's not the 1 or 2 gigabytes that we were seeing maybe a year or 18 months ago, or the 5 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Which really is hopeless if you're trying to do anything like, especially if you're trying to do anything like this with interactive video or anything like that. I think 20 gigabytes is probably nearly in the right ballpark, but we'll see.
Well, one of the things I'll be doing in my new role at Northfield Community Partnerships, Sweyn, is to do a price list, or a data list. Which apps and which websites use more data than others, and therefore people can decide how, where to spend their data. Basically, I think that's a good.
That's a very good idea.
Resource to have, and I haven't seen anybody else doing it just yet.
I'm not aware of anything that's particularly.
I saw something. Yeah. Like, people don't realize that mobile versions of websites use less data than laptop desktop versions. Breege, you might not be aware of that either.
That's my
and I think it's
learning
good to educate people about that. Yeah.
That works both ways, because that is true. If you're talking about websites, mobile websites use mobile designed websites. Websites designed to be read on mobile devices use less data than the full-blown desktop version. On the other hand, things like Facebook and Twitter apps, if you run the apps, that can use up a lot of data compared to if you just went to the website.
Right.
Good point.
On your phone.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of stuff going on there, and it'd be really interesting to see a piece of work that really takes all that seriously from the point of view of affordability rather than the point of view of technical brilliance.
Again, maybe this is one of those, Sweyn, where we should have a flow chart to enable people to make decisions about what, how they want to spend their data.
Somebody should make us an animated film or something.
Something like that. I'm sure it will be done in time.
It will be.
Okay. So yeah, we'd be interested to hear how people get on with that. The next story is, I think, from the US, and the title is "Tackling Health Inequity Means Addressing Digital Inequity Too." And this is from a website called wgbh.org, and was a story from August 21 by Daniel Noyes and Theodora Hanna. And it says that since 2018, Blue Ledge has partnered with Tech Goes Home, another organization, to provide residents in their properties with iPads or laptops, affordable internet, and culturally competent digital training, helping them to develop skills and confidence to more easily and effectively use digital tools. And residents at Blue Lodge, they learn how to use Zoom to connect with primary care physicians and manage chronic conditions, minimizing the need for potentially dangerous in-person visits. They gained access to virtual programming aimed at maintaining physical health and interpersonal connection. They were able to have Bible study, attend online religious services, funerals and weddings, combating social isolation and loneliness, and many learned how to find health information online, manage prescriptions, and more. And again, Breege, this might be something that we can talk more about, whether people in the Freya study and in your organizations were able to attend funerals and so on online, not being able to attend in person. And was that an issue?
That was so important for people, because, as you know, traditionally in Ireland, going home for somebody's funeral is so important, and not to be able to travel, but the whole webcam and the whole digital connection to join that service online was just fantastic. And even for people who regularly go to church, to be able to go to attend mass, on a Sunday online was brilliant. And again, that's about, it helped people so much to cope with the whole. We had a regular newsletter throughout COVID, and the first edition, we had this lovely story about an older Irish lady who was going to mass in every single county in Ireland, and she had the pick of the priests. Now that was just, but how heartwarming was that? And
that's a great story.
Yeah. That was just, honest to God, it was so important, so important.
And that's like a project that she would never have dreamt really of doing if she hadn't been in the particular situation she was. What a good story.
Fantastic.
What a good story.
Absolutely. I have a cousin who's a priest, or my husband's cousin's a priest in Ireland, in Tipperary, and I said, now watch out, because there'll be people joining St. Cronan's Mass from all over the world. But going back to the importance of, funerals and bereavement, and that did help people through really, really
Yes.
difficult times when they couldn't get home. And,
Yes.
it was so, so important. Really, really.
Well, I mean, one of those funerals that was streamed online was John Popham's own funeral,
Yeah.
because he didn't die of COVID-related things at all. He had cancer, but it was just at that time when it was most difficult to organise anything that more than about 4 or 5 people were at. And so those of us who might well have gone to his funeral by travelling were at least able to tune in and support his family in that way. So yeah,
it was very much appreciated. One of the things we have learned, I think, during lockdown as well, is that it's great to have the live streaming of funeral ceremonies, but it's important to remember that that people who are organising the live stream need to make sure that the live stream doesn't cut out at a certain point, and that has happened, and that has disappointed people. So hopefully that's improved since the beginning of the this scenario.
It was a service that was beginning to be available before the pandemic.
It was,
and I think that as the pandemic hit, there were just a few technical challenges for the companies that are providing the service. But anyway, it's as you say, it's a small comfort that the digital stuff can offer in some of these areas, but it's important that we grab those things too.
I think the other thing, just to pick up on a point of because I know Freya is very much about working together and sort of being more sustainable together. One of the things that we did were in a position to do was, events that, for example, might have been online from Leeds or Manchester, we would be able to open up all of those to wherever people were, to promote it widely, and that was great. So people were seeing each other from all over, the north of England, from the south of England. And one of the other fantastic events we had was making a connection with the Irish community in Chicago. We had a fantastic event that was, and there was a reading of poetry, which was just phenomenal. It was Leeds Irish Health and Homes had done what was it called? It was an anthology of poems done throughout the pandemic, and people from all over from Chicago, from all over the UK was reading that poetry, and the what would you call it? The synergy of experiences. All of it resonated with every single one of us as Irish people away from home. I just was sitting there thinking, this is just amazing. And we'd never have thought about that.
No, you wouldn't think of doing it, would you?
You wouldn't. If Zoom wasn't there, you wouldn't do it. So the whole world is open up. It's great.
Yeah.
I have to confess, I always make the point, I've benefited from this stuff as well, living as I do in a very small Scottish island community. The range of events and just the contacts and the quality of the relationship you can build up with organizations and with people working in similar fields has just been amazing over the last year. Although again, it's all, you wouldn't have wished what's happened just to get that, but you might as well grab it since it's there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think as well for people, even beyond COVID, who are housebound, who are caring.
Well, this is it, exactly.
At the time, there's the whole thing that's there online if you're connected.
The thing that's been really striking, and I say this nearly every week as well, we're going to have to think of some more things to say, because I say the same things nearly every week. Whenever you go to one of these long-standing events that is now this year online because we can't all get together, you'll find that a huge proportion of people either have always wanted to go but never could for some reason or another, or heard about it from a friend and thought, oh, well, why not give it a go? And then think, wow, this is great, must go to that again. So all sorts of ways that events only market themselves to people, that small percentage of people who could actually theoretically go. And the digital, making your events available digitally just opens up the whole world to that. I mean, you might not want to open up the whole world, but you can be more careful about it if you want to be. But the chance to get people who would never have thought of being involved to be involved and get active is there.
Yeah.
Including the Orkney International Science Festival. It's happening even as we speak.
I'm pleased to say that the session that was literally happening as we speak is now over, so I don't have to keep going like this.
It's good to see the expertise in action. The other part I just wanted to refer to from this article we were talking about was the Inequity, and they have some data about the scale of the digital divide in Massachusetts. All households in the Commonwealth, which is what they call the area, 15% lack internet access, and nearly 1 in every 5 doesn't have a computer. And many of these households are concentrated in Boston and Massachusetts, gateway cities, which tend to have more low-income residents and residents of colour. And they say seniors specifically face enormous challenges. 41% of all people covered by Medicare in this area don't have access to a desktop or laptop computer with high-speed internet at home. And the barriers are even more pronounced for Black and Latinx seniors. One study estimated 71% of elderly Latinx people and 60% of elderly Black people would not be able to participate in a telemedicine appointment. And so I think, if that's happening in the US, we can imagine that's also happening in the UK, and we want to make sure that that's addressed when we're talking to people who can make a difference to that.
So one of the, just thinking about, 100% digital we mentioned earlier, they had a webinar, I think, not so long ago, and it talked about 40% of people aged 75 and over are not online. And that would be a high percentage, of our Irish community would be in that age group as well. So it's massive, it really is, it is.
Yeah. Sweyn, have we time for another one, or should we?
One more, yes, why not one
more? Okay, so this was one I picked up about financial institutions, which kind of worried me a little bit, from a website called alwaysfinance.co.uk, again, a story from August. And the heading is 100% of financial institutions tested are failing disabled people on accessibility. So of the UK's best known financial institutions, this survey or this research found that 100% of them have accessibility errors on their website homepages that are causing unnecessary hardship for disabled people who expect to be able to deal with their own finances. Dig Inclusion, which helps public bodies and private organizations improve their digital accessibility, carried out a survey of 20 of some of the biggest banks, building societies, lenders and insurers in the UK at the end of July 2021, and they found a catalogue of issues that are stumbling blocks to accessibility for people with a range of disabilities. And Steve Webb, the head of customer engagement at this organization, said, "We are shocked at these findings, which are far worse than we expected. Without fail, each and every one of the homepages we manually tested against the web content accessibility guidelines reported default. Some of the issues on the homepages alone, which is effectively the digital shop windows of these financial institutions, are worryingly critical. We didn't look beyond the homepages for the test, but I would be confident the issue will extend to other pages, apps and tools. We know that being able to manage their own finances is vital for disabled people who want to live independently, and the fact that the finance companies are not grasping the nettle on this is disappointing." And they give some stats about the number of disabled people in the UK, which is increasing from 11.9 million in 2014 to 14.1 million in 2019. So this is obviously an ongoing story, and businesses need to make an ongoing commitment to getting it right. And Steve, the guy who's quoted in the article, is saying it's important to note, when we talk about digital accessibility, we must think beyond blind people using screen readers, keyboard-only users, and those who need screen magnifiers, to include people who are colorblind, dyslexic, or with cognitive impairments, such as people living with dementia. And we should also think about catering to those with temporary disabilities too. So that he's saying everything in the design of your website and apps, from your font, the simplicity of your language, through to the use of color contrast, is vitally important. Financial institutions, he does acknowledge, are by no means alone in falling below acceptable standards in this. A 2019 survey of 1 million websites from around the world found that less than 1% met basic accessibility standards on their homepages. So it's quite a serious matter that we hope we will be able to report more positive news on.
I think it's a huge and ongoing issue there. Yeah, it's a huge ongoing issue. And the fact is that when companies make some of their services digital, they don't factor in the costs and the requirements of this aspect in any way enough, because quite a lot of the time they're going, particularly things like financial institutions, they're doing what they're doing to cut their costs, and what they're not doing is designing them properly for all those types of people, and for people, as you mentioned earlier, Breege, who might have difficulty with literacy and all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the show for this week. Thanks again, Breege, for coming on the show. I think that was really fascinating insight into, a project that is targeted at a particular group of people, but obviously has ramifications for other community groups. So we wish you well, and please keep us up to date with what's happening. And if you need any digital help and we can be of assistance, we'd like to do that. So thanks very much for coming on the show, and have a great week.
Oh, thanks very much. It's a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you then.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. And that's it, we're off.